I wasn't supposed to be there. That's the part that messes with my head the most. I wasn't even supposed to be at the damn hotel. If my meeting hadn't gotten moved up, if my team hadn't reshuffled the presentation schedule at the last minute, I never would have seen what I saw. I would have been sitting across town in a windowless boardroom, sipping bad coffee and thinking my wife was doing the exact same thing. Focused, busy, unreachable, working hard on whatever strategy retreat her firm had going on. Instead, I ended up checking into a downtown hotel 3 hours earlier than planned. It was mid-morning, quiet, the lobby half full with business travelers on laptops, a few people queuing at the front desk. I rolled my suitcase to the side, found a seat near the cafe, and pulled out my phone to check emails. That's when I saw her. Ellie. My wife. My Ellie, except in that moment she didn't look like mine. She looked like someone I didn't fully recognize. She was sitting at a small cafe table near the window, one of those corner spots with plush chairs and too much sunlight. She wasn't alone. A man, mid-30s maybe, dark blazer, well-groomed, confident posture, was sitting across from her. And the way they were interacting, it wasn't subtle. He reached over, touching her wrist lightly as he said something that made her laugh. That quiet, unguarded laugh I hadn't heard from her in weeks, maybe months. She leaned in. He leaned in too. Their heads were close. There was a single slice of cheesecake between them on a plate, 2 forks. She lifted hers to his mouth. He took the bite, smiled, said something low. She smiled back, not forced, familiar. And that's when my stomach turned. For a second I thought, no way, that's not what this is. This has to be work-related. Maybe they're role-playing a pitch. Maybe this guy's a flirty client. I don't know. Something. Anything. But my brain kept cycling back to one fact I couldn't shake. She wasn't supposed to be here. Ellie had told me she'd be at an off-site strategy retreat. A full-day event at a rented space near Zilker Park. Phones off. Brainstorming sessions. Group presentations. The whole thing sounded exhausting. She left the house at 7 a.m. in business casual and flats. Hair pinned back, coffee in hand. She kissed my cheek and said, "Don't expect texts. I'll be off the grid." I believed her. Now here she was, less than 5 miles from where she was supposed to be. Looking different, lighter, animated, relaxed in a way she hadn't been around me in weeks. And next to her was this guy, touching her like they'd done this before. Not just a colleague, not just a friend. I stood there frozen for maybe 20 seconds, trying to convince myself not to read into it. But the cheesecake, the wrist touch, the laughing, her hand flipping her hair, something she only ever did when she felt desired. None of it said coworker. And then, almost like she sensed me, Ellie turned and looked right at me. She didn't jump. She didn't go wide-eyed. No guilt, no panic. Just a pause, a blink, and that tight, neutral smile, like she'd run into someone mildly inconvenient in a checkout line. "Oh," she said, cool and composed, waving me over. "Zach, what are you doing here?" Her tone wasn't warm. It was the kind of tone she used when an assistant double-booked her calendar. I tried to keep my voice steady. "My meeting got moved. I figured I'd check in early. Didn't know you were here too." She gestured to the man across from her like she was giving a presentation. "This is Alex, a client. He just needed me to sign off on a quick contract." We ran into each other in the lobby. Alex nodded politely, but didn't stand. I stared at him for a beat too long before saying, "Nice to meet you." Ellie leaned back in her chair, smoothing her napkin. It was completely unplanned. He just happened to be here. I thought I'd take 10 minutes while he was waiting for his car. You know how these quick things go. She sounded annoyed, like she was having to explain herself when there was nothing to explain. I nodded slowly, not sure what else to do. "I didn't realize the retreat was here," I said. "It's not," she replied quickly. "It's down the street. We're just on a break." I stepped out to get some air. She was lying. I didn't know how I knew, but I knew. "Okay," I said, swallowing the words I really wanted to say. "Well, I'll let you finish your meeting." She looked at me flatly. "Zach, are you?" Okay? I blinked. Yeah, I was just surprised to see you. She gave a tight laugh. You looked like you were about to interrogate me. I wasn't, I said too quickly. She narrowed her eyes, that look she gets when she feels judged. It's starting to feel like you don't trust me lately. I mean, I run into a client during a break, and suddenly I'm on trial? I didn't say that, I said, though my face probably did. Her voice lowered. Can we not do this here? She was embarrassed. Not of the situation, of me. I nodded. Of course. You're right. She gave me a soft, dismissive smile and turned back to Alex. I stood there a second longer than I should have, then backed away toward the elevators. Numb. Upstairs in my room, I stared at the ceiling for half an hour. My heart hadn't slowed. I tried to convince myself that it was nothing, that she told the truth, that it was all just weird timing. But the more I thought about it, the more the details didn't add up. The way she didn't seem surprised. The way she immediately flipped the blame. How she didn't introduce Alex with any warmth, any hint of personal connection. Yet also didn't hide that they were clearly comfortable with each other. And then there was the look she gave me when I questioned her. Not hurt, not defensive, irritated, like I'd embarrassed her by showing up. That's when the thought crept in, the one I couldn't shake. If I hadn't come early, if my schedule hadn't shifted, would I have ever known? Would she have told me? Would she have made up some excuse for the cheesecake on her receipt? For the perfume I didn't recognize when she came home? Or would it have just been another Tuesday? I stared at my phone for a long time that afternoon. Thought about texting her something simple like, everything okay? Or, can we talk later? But I didn't want to come off clingy. She'd already planted that idea, that I was being paranoid, that I was the problem. So I said nothing. And for the rest of the day, I replayed the moment in my head over and over again, wondering how long I'd been looking at her and not really seeing her. After that morning, nothing felt the same. Not Ellie, not home, not even the quiet moments in between. I didn't confront her again. I didn't even bring it up when I got home from the conference. She acted like everything was normal. Asked me how my presentation went, told me her retreat was productive but exhausting. Poured herself a glass of wine and settled on the couch like we were still the same couple from a week ago. But we weren't. I smiled. I nodded. I pretended. But in the back of my mind, something had shifted. A hinge had come loose, and now every small thing felt louder, sharper. That's when I started noticing the changes. Not the big, dramatic ones, but the subtle stuff. The kind you overlook when you're trying to be a good partner. When you're trying to trust someone because that's what marriage is supposed to be. Her phone, for one. It was never out of her hand anymore. Not left charging in the kitchen overnight like it used to be. Not abandoned on the coffee table during dinner. No, it was always with her, in her pocket, on her lap, face down. Always face down. Even when she wasn't using it, it was like it had its own seat at the table. One night, we were watching a movie, and I saw her swipe a text off the screen before I could even glance. Just a flick of the wrist. Like muscle memory. That was new. And then came the password change. She used to leave it unlocked when she was around me. Not intentionally, just out of habit. We weren't the kind of couple who snooped. Or maybe I wasn't. I don't know anymore. But suddenly she had a passcode. One I didn't know. I asked her about it once. Casually, like I didn't care. Oh, she said. Not even looking up from her laptop. Company policy. New update. Security protocol stuff. Maybe that was true. But she never showed me the policy. Never offered the code. Her schedule changed, too. More late evenings. More early mornings. More running behind at the studio, which was her firm's nickname for their downtown co-working space. I'd text her around 7 or 8 p.m. to ask if she wanted dinner, and I'd get a short reply an hour later. Still here. Don't wait up. She used to text with hearts. Used to send photos from her day. Little things. Now it was all business, short replies, generic tone, like I was her assistant instead of her husband. And the nights when she did come home early, she'd breeze right past the kitchen, where I used to catch her scrolling, sipping tea, talking about her day, and head straight to the shower. Long day, she'd say, already halfway down the hall. Just need to rinse it off. She wouldn't even kiss me hello. Wouldn't sit next to me on the couch. Just disappeared. One night, I stayed in bed while she got ready in the bathroom. I watched the sliver of light under the door and listened. She was laughing, softly, into her phone. It was midnight. When she came out, she didn't mention the call. Just slid into bed like nothing had happened and said she was tired. She smelled different. That's what hit me first. Ellie's perfume used to be warm, spicy vanilla, sandalwood, something familiar that stuck to my shirts when she hugged me. But lately it had changed. Sharp, floral, expensive smelling in a way that didn't match the woman who used to wear flannel and fuzzy socks. I made a joke about it once. New perfume? And she shrugged like she barely noticed. It was a sample, something I had in my drawer. She didn't ask if I liked it, didn't seem to care. I tried to brush it all off. I told myself people go through phases. That work was stressful. That maybe I was being paranoid because of the cafe incident. That maybe I was looking for patterns that weren't really there. But the more I tried to convince myself, the more I started remembering things I had ignored. Things that had started long before that morning in the hotel lobby. Like the rooftop. Ellie started going up there after dinner sometimes, saying she needed fresh air. At first, I thought nothing of it. We both used to sit up there with drinks and playlists on warm nights. But she didn't invite me anymore. She'd go alone. Sit on the far end with her phone. Said she couldn't get a signal downstairs. I went up once after her, thinking maybe I'd join her. She didn't hear me coming. I caught the tail end of a conversation. A low laugh and a voice I didn't recognize. She hung up fast when I stepped into view. Just a friend, she said, slipping the phone into her jacket. From work. She's going through something. She said not a name, not a detail, just vague enough to push me back. That was the night I stopped joining her. She forgot our anniversary last month. That was new too. 7 years. Not a milestone, but not nothing. I didn't expect a big gesture, just dinner, a card, a toast. But she came home late, again. And when I handed her the envelope I'd left on the table, she blinked like I'd handed her a parking ticket. "Oh my God," she said, her face paling. I completely blanked. She blamed work. Said they had a surprise review with a client and no one could leave. That she didn't even realize what day it was. She hugged me, but it felt hollow, like a pat on the back. "I'll make it up to you," she said. She never did. That night, I sat alone in the living room and stared at a photo of us from our honeymoon in Big Sur. I remembered how she used to grab my arm in crowds. How she'd dance around the hotel room when her favorite songs came on. How we used to talk until 2 a.m. about stupid things, bucket lists, weird dreams, what kind of dog we'd get. Now she was always tired. Always busy. Always elsewhere. I didn't know when the drift started. Maybe 6 months ago. Maybe a year. Maybe longer if I was honest. But the cafe moment had ripped the curtain back. And now I couldn't stop seeing it. Everything I'd ignored. Every red flag. Every excuse. Every time I told myself I was imagining things. Was now staring me in the face, screaming that something was wrong. And the worst part? I still wanted to believe her. That was the most pathetic thing of all. Even with everything swirling in my head. The secrets, the shifts, the lies that were probably forming. I still clung to the hope that maybe I was wrong. That maybe I was being too sensitive. That maybe I was the problem. Because admitting the truth, admitting that my wife was becoming a stranger, meant confronting the idea that our life wasn't what I thought it was. That I wasn't the man she wanted anymore. That maybe she had already left me in some emotional way, even if she hadn't said it out loud. And once you open that door, there's no closing it. So I kept it cracked. Just a little. Just enough to breathe through. But I didn't stop watching. Not anymore. They say when you catch someone in a lie, it's never as loud as you expect. No dramatic music. No slow-motion heartbreak. No shouting match in a public place. It's quiet. Cold. Almost too normal. Like you're watching your life glitch instead of explode. For me, it started with a calendar notification. Wednesday night. I just finished cleaning up after dinner. Ellie said she had a late design review. Full team working on a new pitch, she told me earlier. Might be past midnight. I didn't question it. Not out loud, anyway. She'd been going out more and more lately. After-hours meetings, client events, art showings. Sometimes she came home dressed in things I didn't even know she owned. Other times, she didn't come home until long after I was asleep. But that night, I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't digging. I wasn't suspicious. I was just checking our shared cloud calendar, the one we used for groceries, vet appointments, dentist reminders. That's when I saw it. Aurora night. Reservation. 8 p.m. That was it. A single entry. No explanation. Set to private. But still synced. First, I thought it was mine. Something I forgot I added. But I didn't know what Aurora night was. It didn't ring any bells. I Googled it. Turns out, Aurora was a new spa lounge downtown, the kind of place influencers posted about. Trendy, dimly lit, scented air, overpriced cocktails. They hosted weekly themed events. Think candlelit yoga, rooftop DJs, night rituals. That night's theme? Moonstone mood. Romantic, apparently. Candles. Robes. Int asterisk Macy. My stomach flipped. I stared at the calendar again. The invite had been created 2 days ago. By Ellie. She hadn't mentioned it. She hadn't said a single word. I sat frozen at the kitchen counter, reading the entry over and over like maybe the words would change. Like maybe I'd missed something obvious. Like it was a spa day she'd booked for us both and just hadn't told me yet. But she wasn't the type to surprise. Not lately. She was the type to lie with half-truths and just enough charm to make me feel like the crazy one. I checked the time. 8:07 p.m. And then, without really deciding to, I grabbed my keys. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I expected to see. Maybe I just needed to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. That something was going on. And I wasn't just a paranoid husband reading too much into patterns. It took 20 minutes to get there. I parked across the street from Aurora and K** led the engine. The building was sleek, upscale, like something out of a high-end retreat catalog. Huge front windows framed a glowing lounge inside, bathed in gold and purple light. Couples walked in and out in plush robes and heels. Some were laughing. Some held hands. I spotted her almost immediately. Ellie. She was walking through the lounge in a short robe, cinched tightly at the waist. Her hair was up. She wore heels. The same ones she told me months ago were too dressy for work. Her legs were bare, and her skin glowed under the amber lighting. She looked beautiful, familiar, and also like someone I hadn't known in a long time. Then came him, the same man from the cafe. He was behind her, then beside her. He had a drink in one hand and reached out with the other to touch her back lightly. Ellie turned toward him, laughed at something he said, then leaned into him as he poured champagne into her glass. His hand stayed at her waist. They clinked glasses, and then they kissed. Not a polite peck, not a tipsy mistake. A real kiss. Slow, familiar, full of memory. I didn't look away. I didn't flinch. I just watched. I sat in the driver's seat of my car, fingers gripping the steering wheel, not moving a muscle. I remember blinking. That's it. Just blinking and thinking how quiet it all was. No panic. No rage. No scream building in my chest. Just stillness. Like everything I'd suspected had finally taken its mask off. There she was, in a spa lounge with a man I didn't know, in a life I hadn't been invited into. Laughing. Leaning. Kissing. She wasn't pretending. She wasn't checking over her shoulder. She wasn't acting like she had anything to hide, because she didn't feel like she had anything to hide. And that was the part that cracked something open in me. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't some fleeting mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness or one drunken night she'd regret. This was her life. A life she was living in full color while I sat at home wondering if the lasagna was overcooked. I don't remember how long I sat there. 10 minutes? 40? Time got weird. My chest was tight, but my brain was calm, focused, almost quiet. Eventually, they moved deeper into the lounge, disappeared from view. Could have followed. Could have stormed in. Could have made a scene. I've seen movies. I know how those stories go. Angry husband barges in, demands answers, wrecks everything in a fit of betrayal. But I didn't. I just sat in the dark of my car, staring at my own reflection in the windshield. And for the first time, I let the truth settle in. She didn't love me anymore, and maybe she hadn't for a while. I don't know when the switch flipped for her, when I stopped being her person and started being her cover. But it was clear now, painfully clear. This wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't a lost connection or a rough patch. It was a whole other version of her I'd never been introduced to, and I had no place in it. When I finally drove home, the city lights blurred past my window like they belonged to someone else. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel anything I could put into words. It was like being underwater, soundless and slow, like someone had hit mute on the world. At home, the kitchen was still as I left it. One fork in the sink. My phone face down on the table. The porch light humming. I poured a glass of water. Didn't drink it. And for the first time since I married Ellie, I didn't wait up for her. I went to bed, eyes wide open. And I didn't dream at all. You'd think once you saw your wife kiss another man, the worst part would be over. It wasn't. Turns out there are different kinds of betrayals. Some crack your heart. Others gut your foundation. And when they come back to back, they don't just hurt. They reshape you. After I saw Ellie at Aurora with him, I didn't confront her. I didn't mention the reservation, the kiss, the robe, the drink. I didn't bring it up that night or the next day or the one after that. She came home late, kissed me on the cheek like she hadn't just lived a separate life in front of me, and told me the project was on track but exhausting. I nodded, said, "Get some rest." Watched her go upstairs and stood in the kitchen feeling like a ghost in my own house. I wasn't angry, not in the way I expected to be. It was more of a frozen kind of fury, the kind that made me silent instead of loud, sharp instead of sloppy. That's when I started digging. Not to catch her cheating again. I already had that, but because something deeper didn't sit right. It started with a payment alert from our shared account. It was a Thursday morning. I was reviewing monthly statements out of habit. We had joint accounts for everything. Mortgage, utilities, groceries. But recently the charges were strange. A subscription to design software, $59. 99 monthly recurring. Another to a cloud storage platform I didn't recognize, $12. A third one, oddly expensive, $300 for a creative marketplace account. Ellie and I were both in the creative world. She worked in marketing and branding. I was a licensed architect, mostly commercial projects these days, though I used to freelance on the side. Used to. I hadn't done side gigs in over a year. Burnout. Too many deadlines. I'd even paused my freelancer portfolio and let old client listings expire. So why were there active charges related to software I didn't use anymore? Under my name? That was the thread I pulled. It unraveled fast. The creative marketplace login had been registered to an email alias I didn't use, but the username matched one I'd created years ago. When I requested a password reset and logged in, I saw a full freelance profile built under my name, Zach Miller, licensed architect, 10 years of experience. Same bio, same #T from LinkedIn, but the portfolio had been updated. The renders were current. The brand packages were new. Even the client reviews were fresh, dated within the last few months. There was work I didn't recognize listed under my name, billed to clients I didn't know, with invoice trails that led to a connected payment account I hadn't authorized. I clicked View Payout Details. The bank account number was blurred, but the last 4 digits were familiar. It was Ellie's. That's when the floor dropped out. She hadn't just lied about where she was or who she was with. She had built a fake version of me, monetized it, and routed the money directly to her personal bank account. She was using my professional credentials to land contracts, sign architectural documents, and get paid. While I sat in the dark, and legally, because it was under my license, I would be the one responsible if anything ever went wrong. My head spun. This wasn't cheating in the romantic sense. This was fraud. Straight up identity misuse. For a while, I just sat there in the living room, staring at my laptop like it was a portal to some alternate life. My wife, who had once helped me revise resumes and proofread emails, had *p*nized my career against me. Quietly, boldly, probably assuming I'd never check. Because why would I? Because she thought I was still trying to win her back while she was dismantling the life we built. I spent the next 2 hours digging further. Checked email logs. Found communications with clients I didn't know. Polite, professional, signed Zach. But they weren't written by me. The tone was off. The formatting was different. She had even adopted some of my old turns of phrase, like she'd studied how I wrote and mimicked it just enough to pass. The most surreal part? One of the messages included feedback on a residential proposal. A blueprint sketch she'd attached using my old CAD template. It was decent. Not great, but passable. That's when I realized she must have had help. Or maybe she was funneling pieces of the work to contractors online. Couldn't know for sure yet, but she had laid out a whole system, one she clearly thought would fly under the radar. Except it didn't. Not anymore. The irony? If she'd just ended the marriage and moved on with the guy from the spa, I probably would have signed a clean divorce, split things fairly, and wished her well, bitter but civil. But this was calculated. Professional theft, papered in charm. She didn't just break vows. She built a backup plan using my name as the parachute. And I'd had no idea. I sat back, exhaled once, and stared at the ceiling like it might give me instructions. Then I called my sister. She was the calm one in our family. Corporate attorney. Sharp. Blunt. I told her everything. She didn't interrupt. Just listened. Then she said, "Zach, you need a real lawyer. Not tomorrow. Today." And that's how it started. We looped in one of her colleagues, a litigator with fraud experience. I forwarded everything. The emails, *TS, statements. I gave access to my cloud accounts and phone records. Within 2 days, I had a neatly compiled document that made Ellie look like someone I didn't recognize. The lawyer was direct. "We can file for divorce with evidence of financial misconduct and identity misuse. You'll have control of the house. We can freeze the accounts. We'll report the misuse to the licensing board and issue a cease and desist on her operation under your name. If you want to pursue civil damages, we can do that too." It was like a switch flipped inside me. I had spent weeks grieving a woman who was already gone. Now I was building a paper trail she couldn't gaslight me out of. But here's the thing, I didn't confront her. Not yet. I kept going about my days like normal. Made coffee. Asked about her projects. Let her walk past me like we were still in limbo. She'd send me the occasional smile. The occasional touch. As if she still had some hold on me. But I was somewhere else now. Sharpening. The papers were printed. Signed. Sealed. Waiting. I wanted her to feel it all at once, the same way I had. There's something eerie about pretending everything's fine when you know it's not. You walk through the house like it's a film set. You rehearse lines in your head. Smile at the right times. Say ham when you're supposed to. But underneath all that, something's coiled. A quiet kind of rage that doesn't scream. It waits. That was me for the next 2 weeks. By day, I was the husband Ellie still believed she could fool. I made coffee. Took out the trash. Asked how her day was, knowing full well what she was doing behind the scenes. I gave her nothing to suspect. No changes in tone. No questioning eyes. Just the version of me she expected, dependable, docile, distracted. But at night, I wasn't sleeping. I was documenting. I had a manila folder tucked behind the lining of my closet. Inside it was everything. *TS of the fake freelance work under my name, bank statements tracing payments into her personal account, email correspondence between her and clients, all pretending to be me. The more I collected, the more surgical I became. No anger, no emotion, just precision. My attorney, a quiet, gray-haired man named Julian who wore tortoiseshell glasses and rarely blinked, handled the logistics. My sister had connected us after seeing what Ellie had done. Julian's only reaction when I dropped the evidence in front of him was to flip through it, pause, and say, "We can work with this." He moved fast. In 3 days, we had drafted the divorce filing, a temporary freeze on all joint accounts, and a cease and desist letter regarding the misuse of my license. There were instructions for how to file a fraud report with the state licensing board. Ellie's fake business? It was about to come crashing down. Quietly, cleanly. The best part? She had no idea. She still kissed my cheek before she left for work. Still texted me during the day, sending emojis and one-word updates like nothing had shifted. I think she assumed I was still in the dazed phase, that I was sad but not suspicious. She didn't know I was working with a private investigator either. That had been my sister's idea. Just in case there's more, she'd said. Which there usually is. And there was. The investigator, a retired detective named Marcus, was blunt. He had a grizzled voice and didn't do small talk. But within 4 days, he sent me a folder of photos. Ellie, the man from the cafe. Again, not just at Aurora. They'd met at 3 different locations over the course of a month. Lunch, once. A movie matinee. And, most recently, checking into a boutique hotel in the middle of a weekday. Clocked in at work, supposedly, Marcus had added. I didn't even flinch reading it. It's weird how numb you can get to betrayal when it becomes routine. That was the turning point. I stopped trying to feel it. I stopped needing to. It wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about closure. About reclaiming control. Not with screaming matches or exposed affairs, but with quiet, deliberate steps that would dismantle everything she thought she had protected. I waited until everything was in place. The paperwork, the freezes, the legal notices, the delivery schedule. Julian had a courier service that specialized in high-stakes divorce cases. Discreet, professional, impersonal. A man in a blazer would arrive at our front door with an envelope, address it to Ellie, and walk away. No drama, no confrontation, just a knock, a signature, and the beginning of the end. That morning I woke up early, earlier than usual. I didn't touch Ellie, didn't say good morning, just got dressed, poured myself a cup of coffee, and sat at the dining table like it was any other Thursday. She came down 10 minutes later wearing a powder blue blouse, the one she always wore when she wanted to look effortlessly professional. Lipstick, hair curled. Big client today? I asked, sipping my coffee. She smiled. Presentation. That investor pitch I told you about. She hadn't. But I nodded anyway. I wanted her to think it was working, the act, the illusion. She grabbed her keys, kissed me on the forehead like we were still us, and left. She had no idea a stranger in a blazer was about to ring our doorbell at exactly 6 p.m. She'd open the door, sign for the envelope, open it. Inside, a full packet. Divorce filing, identity fraud report, documentation of everything. A list of the joint accounts that had already been frozen. And a letter, not from my lawyer, from me. I'd written it 3 days earlier. Not because I needed closure, but because I wanted her to understand that I wasn't leaving out of anger. I was leaving because she had already burned the bridge between us, and then paved a new one using my name. The letter read, Ellie, I saw everything. I know about the man. I know about the fake contracts, the clients, the payments. I know about the signature you forged more than once. I know who you've become, and it's not someone I can or want to build a future with. There won't be a fight. You've already lost the most important thing. Me. Consider this your official notice, not just of the legal consequences of your actions, but of the personal ones. I'm done cleaning up after your lies. Zach, I'd rewritten it 6 times. Not because I wanted it to hurt, but because I wanted it to land. When 6 p.m. came, I wasn't home. I was sitting in my car 2 blocks away, engine off, watching the light in our kitchen window. I saw the courier walk up, tall, dark jacket, clipboard. He knocked, waited. Ellie opened the door. I saw her sign, saw her flip the envelope open before she even closed the door. Saw her stop, just stop. Her hand dropped, her shoulders stiffened. She stood there in the doorway for almost a full minute, holding the pages, as if they weighed more than they should. Then she stepped back inside. I didn't drive home. I drove to my sister's. She'd already poured 2 glasses of whiskey and had a frozen pizza in the oven. She didn't ask how it went. She just handed me a glass and said, Here's to not being the S**her anymore. I drank. Didn't say a word. That night, I turned off my phone. I didn't want to know how she responded. Didn't want to read the messages I knew she'd send. The ones that said, "Can we talk?" Or, "I didn't mean to hurt you." Because the truth is, she did mean to, not to hurt me maybe, but to use me. And when you use someone, hurt is just part of the price you expect them to pay. But not anymore. That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. And in the morning, the silence in the house didn't scare me. Felt like freedom. I wasn't going to the gala, but a friend insisted. And there she was, Ellie in red, laughing in his arms. She didn't look for me. She didn't need to. She had made her choice. I didn't cause a scene, just turned around and left. The next morning, she knocked on my door. No words, no tears, just her standing there like silence could fix it. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. She sat on my steps for 10 minutes, then left. I watched through the peephole, not feeling relief or rage. Just done. No words could undo what she'd broken. It wasn't the cheating that ended us. It was everything after. The lies, the theft, the version of me she rewrote without asking. She left me long before that doorbell rang. And now I had left too, just more quietly.